Hey, I'm Dave. Welcome to Shop Talk. Let's jump straight into this week's awesome viewer questions we're going to get from my co-host, Glenn. How you doing, Glenn?
I'm doing well, Dave. You did a little episode about Windows sucks, and lots of people made some comments.
All right.
Go figure. First one from Maxius the God. Dave, you mentioned keeping anti-cheat out of the kernel. Do you have any ideas on making a better anti-cheat program, or is that out of your wheelhouse?
It's a bit out of my wheelhouse, but I did work on the DRM team, so I was exposed to the guys that were working on stuff like this. And WPA, or Windows Product Activation, does its own kind of anti-cheat to make sure you're not tampering with the activation system or the code. And I can't describe how that works, but it's probably like many other anti-cheat systems. The problem with current anti-cheats is that they used to be in user mode. So you would have a process that watched your other process and made sure that nobody was doing read-write process memory directly to it, and that it always CRC directly in memory correctly and so on. But then the hackers figured out that, well, if we go into kernel, we can just lie and map and massage what that process sees, and now we can totally defeat user mode anti-cheat. And so the anti-cheat guys had to move into the kernel to detect other parts of the kernel being cheats, basically. And the problem with that is now you've got code from like Blizzard running in your kernel. Well, not Blizzard, they don't make an anti-cheat, but whoever Blizzard uses for an anti-cheat system, you've got their code running in your kernel now at the very base operating system. And any bug, any malfunction, any malfeasance in that code takes your whole system down potentially. So what we would like to see, or what I would like to see, is Windows providing authentication attestation for processes in a DRM-like fashion so that the anti-cheat games can just say, here's my digital cert. I want to know that that process has not been monkeyed with and that it matches its original cert and it's signed and it's digitally happy. And I'm going to trust Microsoft and its code in the kernel to do that accounting on the process for me. So that gets third-party vendors out of the kernel, and it's one less blue screen, and it's a way for Windows to make itself more robust.
Okay. So Firefox says, can we talk about this anti-cheat for a minute? Yes, it's nice to have, but like of the list of priority of an operating system, why is this even on the list?
Well, because if you don't do it, you get third-party vendors doing it themselves, and they stick themselves into the kernel space, and they have bugs, and they bring your system down. So in order to keep the system stable, you really want the operating system vendor to provide those services rather than third parties poking their way into the kernel and doing magic.
Okay, great.
So it's not that Microsoft wants to do this. It's that if we don't do it, they're going to do it themselves, and they're going to do a terrible job at it. So,
and by we, you mean Microsoft, but not you.
Yes, not me personally. I have nothing to do with
it. Little slip there. Neolithic newbie. Would you use a non-GUI, non-graphical user interface version of Windows? I thought there's a Windows Server version or option that could be installed with no GUI at all and have everything that was done via the command line. NT kernel with X11 or Wayland and a bash shell?
Well, they're getting closer. The problem was you could SSH or telnet into a Windows machine, SSH preferably, after installing OpenSSH. But it's great until you want to edit a file. And then if you don't have VI or something, what do? You launch Notepad, it pops up on a desktop Windows station somewhere. So Microsoft has slowly been addressing this. There's now a command line terminal-based editor that you can use to edit config and any files and startup scripts and stuff like that. Whereas before, you didn't have any out-of-the-box tools and had to install something. So they're coming along. They're just a little slow.
Computer Love 87. I still genuinely don't understand why they don't just port every option from Control Panel to settings from day one on Windows 8. The old Control Panel applets can live there in the background, but why couldn't settings contain all of them as shiny veneer on top of the old code at the very least?
Well, a lot of them would require a whole new rewrite of the UI to fit into the new paradigm of the way the control panel in the settings page is laid out. So it's not just like we take the icon and throw it in a different folder and now it works. Because you've got to redo the entire user interface to be HTML-based or whatever they're using. So it's not a trivial change, but I do think they should have long since ported all of the factory in-house stuff. If you have an old control panel output from a third-party vendor that plugs into the control panel structure, yeah, you're going to have to go into the old control panel to get at that. But I would think that all the modern operating system stuff should get migrated faster than it has. I mean, I'd hire a ton of interns or something to port control panel applets. None of it's rocket science. I can understand some of the systems management stuff, WMS and all that might be complicated to do, but it's been done before, so it can be done again. Let's do it and get it over with.
Okay. Tomorrow 6 says, has Microsoft blocked the ability to terminate the Explorer shell? That used to be the way to clean up a few rogue processes that weren't exiting.
Not that I know of. I hope not. If you can't kill explorer.exe, that's kind of a... Explorer should be resilient enough that you can kill it and it comes back up like some kind of horror movie monster. But
the good kind? Yeah.
Depends what the Explorer does when it comes back, I guess.
That's right. And this one I want to address too. So John Video, 1969, last episode had a question. It was just, is there value in doing this? Are you just testing? And he let me know that, yeah, that was part of the question. So I must have clipped it. So here's John Video's full question. I'm a small-time content creator. I focus on YouTube and post links to X and other social media sites. I see you sometimes post video directly to X. Is there a value to doing this, or are you just testing?
I'm mostly just testing to see what happens. I don't get much response on YouTube, on X for videos. If I post a video, I might get, 400,000 views on YouTube and get 50,000 if that on X. And if you drill down into the stats, that's just people who saw the video as opposed to people who actually expanded, watched, turned on the audio, and engaged with the video is very different and a lot lower on X. I'm sure if you've got millions of followers on X, it's a tiny little income source, but I do not. So for me, just mostly testing to see how it does. And so far, posting a link to the YouTube episode works almost as well, but feels weird because it links you out of the platform. So I assume they emphasize those.
WPA FBO. How about a file system that is smart enough to delete an open file so we can avoid a stuck process from preventing file deletion? Or if I kill a stuck process, it actually gets killed?
Well, if you kill a stuck process, it should actually get killed. It really does, unless there's some kind of kernel bug going on. But as long as the kernel is working properly, when TaskManager calls terminate process, it really should go away. There's nothing that a process can do to protect itself, really, because it will enable debug privilege and attach to the debugger and bring it down that way if it has to. So, yeah, I'm not sure on that one.
Okay.
Well, what was the other half of that question before the process killing?
Actually avoid a stuck process from preventing file deletion?
Oh, yeah. So there is a thing where if you want to, say, put an SD card in, and you launch Boolean Etcher or some copier program, and you've got a file folder open and it's looking at the disk, and then you go, hey, format this disk. Well, it can't because you've got a couple of things open on that disk. And so the one thing you can do is go and close all the shell windows that are pointing at that, but that doesn't help with Boolean Etcher. And so what I do is I come up with a bunch of fake sh change notify hooks, and I create fake handles, and I give those back to Boolean Etcher, and then I go and I format the disk in the background as best I can, and then it unlocks the disk so you can do things to it while everybody else thinks they're talking to the disk and waiting on the disk. They're waiting on some fake handles that I created. And then when the format is complete, I swap them and then fire a change notification to everybody that was waiting, and got a patent on that, which doesn't seem very complicated, but it solved a real problem. So, and it's a little more complicated than I'm explaining,
okay.
But
I thought you were talking like, oh yeah, I'm kicking around and I just sort of send out all these fake handles and send it off just to tie a system up so I can do something that it doesn't want to do. But
well, it was that reason. But then when the program management saw it, they go, has this ever been done before? And I said, I don't think so. And so they applied for a patent.
So you incorporated that in which systems or where is that being used?
As far as I remember, it's when you go to format a disk.
Okay.
So it closes and fakes handles that are open to the disk.
Oh, wow. Fake handles. Never knew fake handles existed. There you go. It also has another piece here, or to address OS rot, such as all the garbage that Windows accumulates in the registry.
Yeah, it's hard to know what's not important anymore in the registry. I think everything that's in there still probably thinks it has a reason to be in there, or they would be pruning it. But, let's say there's some old Windows management perfmon. Perfmon stores all of its data in the registry. And you haven't used perfmon maybe in 20 years. But you can't just delete its data because it's got to know it when it starts up. So at what point does it become bloat versus backwards compatibility? That's up to the viewer to decide, I guess. So.
And what's I guess the impact of that specific example may be small, but when you accumulate it with other examples, then it starts to add up. Russell McNaughton says, I was so sure you were going to mention audio. Why is Windows still so bad at low latency audio?
I thought it was way better than it used to be. I thought the new direct audio stuff was as good as the Mac. But everybody I know uses a Mac and Logic and FL Studio and not Fruit. Well, if you're younger, you're using Fruity Loops. Maybe the big producers aren't anymore. I don't know. But Yeah, most of that seems to be on the Mac, but I've heard that the PC is way better than it used to be.
KC King Colin, as nostalgic as it is, I still think I'll be sticking with Linux for the foreseeable future. Yeah, him and probably a whole bunch of other folks. I know it was never perfect and still isn't, but I've only ever seen Linux get better, not worse. He says it's going to be hard for Microsoft to achieve that same level of adaptability, and even harder for them to convince people like me who already built their perfect OS to make the switch back.
Yeah, if you're used to Linux and it actually does what you need on the desktop day to day, there'd be very little reason for you to go to Windows. But I don't think that that's true for most of the population. I think they're kind of used to and dependent on and happy with the way that, not always happy with, but often happy with the way Windows works. So making the jump to Linux, not insurmountable, but it's a hard cliff to push people over in mass, I think. Maybe I need a better analogy than that. But go, Lemmings, go!
Sumi Kome, I suppose alternatively, if Microsoft doesn't want to do it, they could just open source the shell so power users can do it themselves. Do you think Microsoft has any chance of doing that? I don't suppose there's any security or other strictly proprietary things involved in the shell.
No, I don't see them open sourcing any of the shell,
Yeah.
but there are enough hooks and there are enough ways to customize and modify the shell that I'm surprised there aren't more examples of third-party shells that just integrate nicely. I mean, my visual zip thing that I did 30-some years ago was an example of a thing that goes in, hooks, registers itself, and becomes a new shell view for zip files. Well, you could make your own Explorer for folders. You could make your own Explorer for whatever you want and hook it in there and take over parts of the system shell that you want to replace without replacing the whole thing wholesale. But I don't see a lot of that going on, so it seems like there's a lot of ideas and not a lot of implementations.
Photon Boy, a little bit of a call out here, says, Dave is wrong about TaskManager.
Uh-oh.
He says, Dave, you may want to actually open and close the TaskManager a few times rather than speculate. I was surprised you didn't seem to do that. I just did 10 times, and it's about 17 megabytes average per background process. Or am I wrong?
I don't know. What version of Windows? Probably the current Windows is probably 17 megabytes. I don't know. I don't know what I said that was wrong.
I don't know. I think they're saying that no matter how many times you open it, it's still only about 50 meg or something.
Oh, maybe that's what they're talking about. Yeah, so you have 10 copies of the program, and they each have 50 megabytes of virtual address space. But those 50 megabytes, 40 of them are all pointing to the same shared pool of code that is on the disk still and backed by disk files. So you might think you have 500 megabytes, but you only have 40 plus 10 for each, something like that.
Okay.
They share the common parts.
Now, wasn't there something that did it just come out today or yesterday? I saw that Windows has fixed that little problem now with TaskManager.
Yeah, I guess they had the fix internally for a long time, but for some reason didn't get it checked in. They didn't think it was serious enough, and then it started to bite people, so they got it out the door.
Bare Metal Baron. Modern operating systems are generally too complex to tune blindly. Then surely that's the real problem. The realistic fix isn't no telemetry. No, the solution is to simplify the OS and then remove all telemetry.
Yeah, well, you could run Windows 2000 or something maybe, and even then you would still want telemetry, and it probably had some basic telemetry. So I don't agree that there's a system that's simple enough that you can deploy it to 1 billion users, ask no questions, and assume that your operating system is so elegant and small and brisk and happy that everybody's going to be satisfied and it'll never have a problem. You're still going to want telemetry.
Yeah, but
you want to be fair and
need.
Transparent and so on. You don't want to hide stuff from the user or chat behind their back. I'm not saying any of that, but you need the data to know where your system is failing.
Nate, the programmer, I just want to pick up on one thing that low-key triggered him just a bit. And again, it's at 1436. What was the Windows Vista fiasco, if not an extension of the x64 transition? Most users did experience this event.
Well, yeah, but then nothing was bad about Vista because of the x64 transition. Any issues you had with Vista were because it was an ambitious project and it bit off more than it could chew, and it had more visual change and impact than people were ready for at that time. A number of reasons like that, perhaps, but it was not the 64-bit transition that made Vista have a bad name, I don't think.
Benevolent deity, have you considered creating an OS that embodies these ideals? I would absolutely use it. Name it DAVE. Doesn't ask, very efficient.
There you go. No, operating system seems like a big piece of stuff to chew off. So, even a kernel these days is a big team. So it's not like Linux could be written by Linus today, I don't think. Nobody else has come along and written a kernel in a while.
Yeah.
So.
Some open source Dave operating system. And
I just either would run Linux or Windows or Mac OS. There's enough choices out there that one of them will fit.
Yeah,
I don't need it to be custom tailored.
JW Platt, Dave, since you mentioned tray icon cleanup, why is it so damn impossible to clean up any tray icons of apps that get killed? Or how do we reattach to an old tray icon hanging around to clean it up?
Yeah, the only way that the shell knows when the icon is dead is when you do something with it, like click on it. And so the shell goes, okay, I got to send this on to the process that owns it. Then it goes, hello, where'd you go? And so it takes the icon away and says it's gone. But it doesn't know proactively that the process that was responsible for that icon has gone away. There's no communication between it. There's just API calls and messages that come from the program that says, put up this icon when I tell you and change it to this when I say so. And then it goes away and your icon is orphaned.
Stone Laughter, stop apps at the OS level from grabbing the damn focus from a user when they're already typing otherwise busy. I will get to that screen when I'm ready. In the meantime, just let me work.
Yeah, but it's not that easy because what if you're in a program and you type save and now it goes to write to the disk, and if it encounters a problem and it has to tell you that, hey, I wasn't able to save your file, Dave, but you're like, screw you, man, I'm editing that file. I'm a busy man. I don't want to be told things like you couldn't save it right now. I'm busy typing. And you go on and continue working. Meanwhile, you've got a dialog behind your window that says there's been a fatal write error. So you probably want to surface some errors that are like fatal write errors to the very top, but that's going to take away your write focus or your typing focus. But do you want to not be able to press enter or space or OK or escape in that dialog? So you want the keyboard focus to follow. And this is just one random example that I'm making up. And there are dozens of scenarios like that make focus a pretty complicated issue for the window manager to actually track and make sense of.
One of those examples is probably this one here. Tracy in LaChance, tiny story about her grandma. She said that she gets this new laptop and she gets a tiny pop-up in the lower right corner asking what she wants to do with this newly connected SD card or something. And says that before her grandma can get down there to address it, poof, it's gone, never to be seen again. So she said, what became of the pop-ups in the middle of the screen that wouldn't go away until you actually made a decision?
Yeah, that's the difference between a modal dialog and a pop-up tray notification. So the modal dialog will sit there and wait for its process, at least, until it gets an answer, whereas the little tray icon will tell you transitory information and then go away in a certain amount of time. You don't want the balloon tips down there to stay up forever either, unless they're serious. And if they're serious, like it's a write failure, it should be a more in your face. On the Amiga, I would run a hot mouse, which basically any window that your mouse went over, it would surface and activate.
Ooh.
Now, I didn't have 50 Chrome tabs open on my Amiga at the time, so maybe it was a less scalable solution, but I remember that being pretty workable. Yeah. So
I'm going to say you didn't have any Chrome tabs open on your Amiga?
Probably. Okay. Unless they were Chrome dinosaurs or Chrome T-Rexes. Those were popular at the time.
Okay, let's go into some TaskManager bug stuff here, Dave. Bill J. I've noticed times when my computer seemed to be very busy doing who knows what, so I'd open TaskManager to see if there's something nefarious running. TaskManager would not show anything running, and the computer would suddenly not be busy. Can nefarious programs detect when TaskManager starts and idle themselves so they don't stand out?
They could. I made a joke on X about it today, actually, or was it yesterday? I posted a pseudocode, and it was like, if TaskManager is active, then run TaskManager window, else Bitcoin mine for Dave. And
you're a bad man.
I know. Some people thought I was serious. There's always going to be a few people, right? But I thought it was pretty clear I was joking. But I suppose the program malware could certainly watch and will just register for that window class, look for it. If it's active, we'll hide ourselves. If it's rootkitted the machine, you don't even need to do that. You just hide yourself. But
Flight Sim Dev says, my TaskManager only opens once and only uses 50 meg. There it is. Yeah. Getting back to that other question, is he not doing it right, or is he doing it right?
Well, no, it tries to keep itself to a single instance. It tries to prevent having multiple copies. That's expected behavior.
Bernard Baumgartner, the TaskManager systrace story is intriguing. Can you perhaps answer a question on one of the future episodes about the Windows Registry and its architecture? Why does it exist? Why would someone writing software today put application-specific configs in the registry instead of plain and simple config files in app directory, for example?
Roaming, I think, is the big one. So instead of roaming around a whole, 500 configuration files every time you log in or out, just a diff from the Hive, in terms of what changed in the registry is probably more smaller and more efficient and makes more sense. But yeah, it's worth a whole look at the registry, because I think what started as a good intent got abused to the point where so much got put in it that now people can't make heads or tails of it. So it's kind of a, you wouldn't browse the registry today. You would search, if anything, and more likely know where you're looking. But
And then he also goes on, does Linux have a similar central config for the OS and its application?
no, but if your user folder roams, which is more expensive, you can have all your ini files in your user folder roam. And so that's kind of how they do it. But if you've got a bunch of stuff, like huge dictionary files, you got to roam those too now. And it gets more complicated in terms of what to roam and what not to roam. So a central database makes a certain amount of sense over ini files, but there are virtues and problems with both approaches. So.
Bikeman AMDR7. What's your opinion on remote desktop in Windows 11 Pro? Is it a security risk to use on LAN or safe to use on internal LAN network?
I believe it's safe to use as long as you're using the secure settings and have set up with a certificate. If you are not running with that certificate to make sure that the host you're connecting to, you are subject to a man-in-the-middle attack where somebody could snoop on your RDP connection. Now, it could also be that RDP does encryption all on its own that makes it hard to defeat. But if you don't have the proper digital cert and the encryption going, then you're not really guaranteed. So that's the way I would go. And I don't do that, to be honest. I just assume that you can't get to my IP and get past my password prompt. But
Amid, in the age of streaming services, what is your take on the lack of ownership of media? It says, nowadays it seems like everyone and their dog wants to tap our bank accounts for that sweet, sweet monthly subscription.
Yeah, it's getting out of hand. I just went through some of my subscriptions this week and found I had a couple expensive ones that I signed up for trials and thought, yeah, I'll remember to cancel this, and then forgot about it. And like, oh man, I've been paying that for 5 months. That sucks. That kind of thing. So I know the pain. I do try to watch it and ride herd on it, and I think everybody has to. I wish there was a centralized, like at my bank or my credit card company, I go and see all my subscriptions and see which ones I want to keep. Fortunately, Apple has that for its subscriptions. There's a centralized place, whether it's TV or apps or services, it's all in one place, and you can see what's going to renew and when, and I do like that. I wish that was a more unified way for that to work.
The user 6666, whoa, that's like
4
three
sixes.
sixes and then like another one. Since you mentioned the mesmerizer, I said, who did the design of the PCB? And is that design documented somewhere?
Me, with help from various people, because I didn't really know what I was doing. So I solicited help along the way. So lots of people did chip in and help me out. But yeah, the basic design was me. And I'm the one that finalized it and produced them and made the PCBs and put them in the box and do all that stuff. So there is no documentation on it. That one is not open source. So the code is all open source. You could make your own mesmerizer PCB. You just can't duplicate mine. And I just didn't want China to be knocking them out by the million or something. So it's not that I'm really protective of it, but
Also, the Hub 75 panels can be daisy chained. Any thoughts on how many the controller could actually drive? And I think you know the exact answer. 3.
yeah, I've tried 4, and I had touch and go luck with 4. I had to take other stuff out of memory to get enough base memory to do the DMA for 4, but I was able to get 3 working pretty well. And with a Raspberry Pi, I've got, was it 5 or 6 up on my bench over here? That
Oh,
long
right.
strip?
Yeah. If you go up to a Raspberry Pi, you can do more. Don Eisenhower, thanks for working these videos. What do you do to detect or prevent or both bitrot on your data archives?
I use ZFS, which has a scrub pass that runs every couple of months, as I understand it, and goes and it at least reads the data. I don't know that it rewrites it like SpinWrite in the old days. Right. It might in order to, make the bits not rot. I'm not sure of the actual process, but it's part of the file system in that case. So that's what I do for that. And that's Don's, not his first question. I remember his name from before.
Yeah, Don Eisenhower.
Like Eisenhower, but different.
Yeah, it might be Eisenhower, but he spells it Eisenhower, or I pronounce it Eisenhower. Let me know, Don. I'd be happy to correct that pronunciation.
He's probably at home. It is Eisenhower, you bastards.
Yeah. Is it okay? So I said pronunciation. Is it pronunciation or pronunciation? Is one of those British and one American?
Pronunciation. Yes.
Pronunciation. Oh, like a boot.
A boot.
Pronunciation. Let's get off that. Starbase 51 ship testing facility. Whoa. How long have you been away? Windows has lots of Trojans and viruses doing impersonations. Trojan. I'm Microsoft Edge. I'm safe. Quite literally, few misdirects from a compromised DNS server could cause Windows to update from fake Microsoft update servers.
I wouldn't think so, not with a digital search in place. I'm pretty sure they thought of that one. What if we point the DNS to like dave.update.com? Oh my God, it's all Dave's code. I'm pretty sure they saw that one coming. So,
well, maybe like the previous guy, 6.6.6.6, and then you're accent for trouble.
Super Satan.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't call our guest Super Satan. That's probably a bad choice. Super Satan, come back.
We need you. Yeah. Well, like and subscribe. Watch till the end. You don't have to. Yeah. Gavin, M161. You have to be kidding. DNS is the Achilles heel. That thing was so well designed and engineered it stood the test of time for almost 40 years. DNS is not the issue, just the servers and services that provide it.
That's why I was specifically clear to call it a linchpin and not an Achilles heel. Did you not listen to the episode? Yes,
we
it's
only
important,
ask,
but it's not weak or fragile. It's not like
we
an Achilles
only
heel.
ask that they play the whole episode. Listening to it is maybe too heavy. That's
Take
too
notes,
heavy a
watch
lift
it
for
back
some.
at 75%. You do what you need to do in order to ingest all the information that we're giving you.
Oh, they have to watch and ingest? Oh my God, you're demanding. You're a tough boss. Mike Houghton is Unit 8720. Is CPM still a thing? I remember back in the 90s, maybe early 2000s, messing with an old machine. So I can't remember what, but is CPM still in play?
Yeah, Ray Nurda, he's got a little shop on 11th Avenue there. He's selling it by the disc. I don't know. I assume
Out of his
not,
trunk?
but yeah, out of the trunk of his car. I'm Ray Nurda. Buy my CPM.
Those are 3.5-inch floppies he's got them on, right?
Yeah, well, Novell could be 5 1/4.
Oh, okay, could be, yeah.
I wonder if he's still alive. I don't even know. I assume not. He was pretty old. But maybe his hate for Bill kept him alive. Kind of like the Emperor in Star Wars. Yeah, I like him a lot. But.
Neolithic newbie, drive shaking? Don't know if there are any videos of an RPO6 or RP06, I'm going to say, doing massive seeks. You could make an RP06 play music by the tones of the head seeking. When they really started shaking, we would say they were in Maytag mode.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. My RKO5s, which just have a single head on each side, but have a massive head and just chunk back and forth, they will rock the machine because they're slow enough that if you do a seek back and forth, the harmonics are enough. Whereas the RA82 seeks so fast, it basically vibrates. It doesn't, the machine's not rocking back and forth. But on the RKO5, it is. And I tried to film it, and it's like, okay, it seems pretty impressive when you're in person, but on film, it's like,
yeah. So RP06, RKO5, does the RPO stand for something in the RKO?
I don't know what RP and RK
or is it a
stand
05 and 06? Because
I don't know what they're named after. I know the RPO6 is the big stack, with like 14 platters and the big plastic thing. You spin the handle and put the caster in. RKO5 is the single cartridge disc that we were using, the big 1 meg cartridges. Then there's RLO2 is the 10 meg cartridges in the desk. And that's the only removable ones I know. But then
so
you go
it
up to
must
the
be
RA.
a 0. I just get the O and 0 is something I've always been, I think since starting to work on computers back in the old days in the 80s, and always drawing a 0 with a line through it. So you know the difference between a 0 and an O. And it's just one of those things that's just stuck in my head, and I'm
but even if there is a slash through the 0, I still call it RLO2. Yeah, even though I know it's a 0, I still call it RLO2.
Yeah. I think that's the.
Or my phone number was, blah, 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 8303, even though there's no letters in there.
Yeah. My home phone number, my folks still is 6092. Yeah, we never said 6092. That'd be weird.
I do when I'm trying to be really pedantic on the phone and be really clear.
Yes.
But yeah, normally not.
Yeah. Like with your credit card number. What was it again?
4.
6666. Ivan Majlika. Wait, MFM drives would come out of the factory with bad blocks? And they would be listed on a drive? This can't be right.
It is true. There'd be a sticker right on there. I wish I had one handy to show you, but I don't.
Yeah.
Got to go get one? I know where it is.
Yes, okay, let's get one.
All right, they're super faint because they're printed with a dot matrix, but they're actually printed very faintly on this label here. I don't know, you can see I've written other stuff on it. But so you get the drive out of the box, brand new drive. go through the label, find out which ones are bad, enter them into the program, and tell the program which ones not to use so that it doesn't waste its time trying to format those sectors.
So brand new drive, it's got bad sectors. How the hell
And I say that in the episode, I think, you have to look at bad sectors not as a moral failing or a sin, because all drives are going to probably have a couple. So as long as the drive is able to manage them and replace them, that's all you can ask for, because even a modern drive, it's going to have, it's going to have bad, that's my Rivian talking to me. Yeah. It's going to have bad sectors on it somewhere. It's just hiding them from you. So.
And again, I'm thinking from a production standpoint, that must have been part of the production or the process of producing drives. You accept a certain amount of acceptable error, and the cost of producing drives with no bad sectors must have been too high.
Oh, yeah, your yields would be zero effectively, because you're trying to make a drive. Even a 1 terabyte drive has 8,000, is it 8 trillion bytes or 8 trillion bits? I mean.
Right.
And trying to get them all right, you can't get 8 trillion things right. If you got a 9999995, you still got 500 bad disks or 500 bad bits on the disk. So you're going to have to come up with a replacement system, because there's nothing that's 29s perfect.
Right. So you have an acceptable amount of error, and then the big thing is to identify it and label it so that it's...
And hide it. So the software hides it from you.
Exactly.
So you're not like...
If you can identify it and label it, exclude it from the system, then 99.99% of your drive is completely fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and from your view, 100% is fine. That's the important thing.
Yeah, exactly. Ian Leach jumped onto that thing you're making about, jump on your sticky bones. He said sticky bones. It's reminiscent of the DEC K1 or KI1070 with its RPO6 disk packs, said which featured ribs, retrieval information blocks, and the inevitable spare ribs, all with DEC's special sauce, of course.
That's new to me, but I like that.
Yeah.
Spare ribs.
I thought that was good. Yeah, he had ribs and spare ribs, retrieval information blocks. Eddie Gurge, Dave, could you talk about the practice of parking drives and when that stopped being a thing to worry about?
Yeah, so in the old days, when your drive would spin up, you can imagine the heads, they go and step out onto the drive. Now, say the power goes out. Brr. Well, now your head is sitting on the drive, and when you spin it up next time, it's going to start from a stop position, and it could scrape because it's not floating yet. So what modern drives do is as soon as the power goes out, they go brrr, and they retract the heads away from them. But the old ones didn't. So if you had to, I'm going to move my PC across the room, well, you would want to park the heads and then turn it off, move the machine, turn it back on. And so you used to have to manually do that, but now they do it every time they power down.
So old drives, when you stopped seeking, the head just stayed where it was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And modern drives do too until the power goes out.
Oh,
in a special case that it's not a lack of power that causes them. It's like, oh crap, power is gone. Use our last micro voltage to. In fact, there are some drives that will actually, I understand, use the rotational energy and recover that to be able to write the last bits without a battery backup. So that's kind of cool.
Hybrid, almost like plug-in hybrids then.
Yeah, it reminded me of Chernobyl. Because I think in Chernobyl, they were trying to harvest the spin down energy during a test. Yeah. And then they got a little greedy and blew it up. That's my Chernobyl summary.
A little too greedy. Yeah. No need to read any books or watch the movie.
No, I covered it.
You heard it all here. Zagabob. Dave, do you have any IBM ZOS machines or experience with those?
No, I went out to IBM in Poughkeepsie, and we had a good time, and we did an episode that's got like 1 million views on the mainframe systems, but they didn't send me any. I couldn't carry any home with me, and none would fit my rental car, so I do not have an IBM Z mainframe. If I could get a current one, it would be cool, but I don't have any nostalgia for like 1970s IBM mainframes.
No.
A little bit, but what the heck am I going to do with it?
I thought you were in some sort of discussion with the folks at IBM about testing some stuff or running it through.
Yeah, we looked into it briefly to see if I could run it on single-phase power, and it turns out they do want 3-phase, but you can run them on 1-phase. You just can't run all the CPUs, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be sending me the 210 CPU box. So.
Well, we run 3-phase at work. We don't have 3-phase power. We just have an inverter that steps it up to 3-phase, and we run.
Oh yeah, if somebody gave me something cool enough, I would buy a phase converter to be able to power it for sure.
Yeah.
Well, my buddy Jim, he had a giant electric motor spinning a giant electric generator backwards, and so the single-phase power came in, spun the motor, which spun the generator, which generated three-phase power through his mill and lathe and all that.
Yeah.
Totally homemade, but it seemed to work. So
Was you burning coal to fire the generator? Or?
yeah.
Mark 36 NGNT44. Are any of your Kaypros a Kaypro II? Says he used one in 1987 to help program a PLC as part of a process automation project.
No, do you have an iPhone 7? No. I got a Kaypro 4.
Okay.
I've actually got two Kaypro 4s. I don't know why I've got two 4s and not a 3 and a 2 and a 1, but there's weird naming in there too, right? Like they named them non-sequentially and then reused one of the numbers. I don't remember my Kaypro history. Anybody that knows Kaypro will be laughing and pointing at the screen, but yeah, they numbered them really weird. So the Kaypro 4 was not like the fourth Kaypro. It's kind of weird like that, but I have to look up the details.
Because some Kite says, I had an upgraded Kaypro 1. Which do you have, and have you done an episode about them? So you have the 4.
I've just done the 4, and I just, I got them working, booted CPM, and it's like hard to make, Tech Tangents could do a good episode on that, but for me as a talking head video, there's only so much you can talk about. Not that couldn't be done, but it'd be more interesting to see somebody like Tech Tangents do it, because he takes things apart and shows you the camera angles, and I don't really do that as much.
Yeah. Lucid Moses, I take it that it's the zilog version of the Kaypro? Do you know which version?
I assume it's the Z80, but I don't know.
Okay. He says, are you looking for an 8088 version of the Kaypro?
I didn't know there was one.
Sounds like maybe Lucid Moses has one. He should hit you up. Send you,
I thought, was that a board you put in the Kaypro that added an 8088? Or was it actually a replacement for the CPU? I don't know, because I'm not a Kaypro expert, but drop me a note. Let me know.
Yeah, I'm not an expert. I just have one. Yeah.
Well, you don't have to be an expert to own something.
That's right.
You know that.
Well, clearly, because I own a few things, and I'm not an expert in anything. D Staron, if you have a floppy from that PDP-11, can you hold it up for everyone to see one?
Yeah, but it's just the regular 5 1/4 inch. Let me grab it.
Oh, okay.
Ugh. So this, you might remember, is a regular 5 1/4 inch floppy.
Yeah.
I laugh at your tiny floppy. This
Whoa,
is floppy.
nice. Yeah.
And so by comparison, you can see they're quite different.
What's that, the car?
Yeah, the car keeps, every time I walk over there, it unlocks, and when I leave, it goes, woohoo.
That's fun. So what's the size of the larger one? They're 8?
8 inch.
Just 8. Oh, flat. Okay.
Yeah. And that's for the PDP 1134, and then the 73 uses the more modern 5 1/4.
Right. Gexus. How about those ST506 drives with the external actuator arms? They were used in the Deck Professional 350. Says he had one for many years because he was a data retrieve programmer.
I've never seen one of the deck ones. I've had an old Western Digital drive that had an external, it was a stepper motor to move the head. It wasn't even a voice coil. It had a counterweight. So you can see like, wah, 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 wah. And it was very old and very slow, but it worked. But it was very slow.
And you still remember how it sounded, because it sounded exactly like that.
Exactly like that, yeah.
Yeah. The Great Tatario. What is the newest machine you still have nostalgia for?
Probably the IBM PS2 Model 95. That's my big IBM PS2 tower with the 4666, and it was the big daddy machine of the PS2 lineup. I only ever saw one in the day, and it was in an IBM office. So now to have one under my desk feels mighty and powerful. So that'd be my newest machine.
CVA BDS, why don't you contribute to the ReactOS?
I don't know what problem it solves other than not paying for Windows. So if it was trying to achieve something technically that Windows couldn't do, or it was trying to solve a problem that Windows didn't solve, then I could see it. But if it's like, hey, we're going to solve 80% of Windows for free, that's less of a compelling thing for me. So that'd be why. I'm not saying it's not without value. It's just not something. I mean, I worked on real Windows. Do I want to work on Windows Junior? I'm sorry. That's from The Simpsons. They call Canada America Junior. It always bugged me. So. Why would we go to America Junior when we're here in America?
Yeah. We've been cousin, maybe? Junior? Yeah. A couple different things. Funny. I think it's funny. trying not to think of it as sad.
Yeah.
Jody Vesser, I see you guys. It reminds you of the Skycat and Skyfox VAX servers at the U of S back in the 80s, so which may be more relevant for me. But he says, do either of you get, and I don't get, but Dave, do you get sudden bursts of nostalgia for cool server names back in your university days? And I think...
Yeah, actually I do, because my main machine is called Minerva. That's the big PDP-11, which is named after machines at the U of R, Minerva and Vinerva. So I usually have one of those. And today I finished building the second of a pair of PDP-11s, and I named them Apollo and Artemis. And so I got out ChatGPT, and I'm like, I'm naming servers after Greek mythology, but I need people that are twins. And then, Apollo and Artemis. I remembered after that. But so yeah, that's how I name mine too. I got Spanky, who's got all my best fancy parts in it. Spanky's on eBay right now. If you want a really cool 1173, it's got all my best parts in there. So.
And you had that nice metal Leon Lee case from like 20 some years ago. Silver.
That's got a Xeon Silver in there, which is just coincidence. Rob Short from DEC this week was out at the office here, and he was telling me about the old PDP-10s and I think it was a PDP-10 he was talking about. It could have been 11, but he said they're resilient to power failures if you had the memory backup, and they actually had recovery codes. So DEC had a demo where they were copying from one big tape to another big tape with the PDP in the middle, and then they shut it all down, the power breakers, and they wait 5 minutes and power it back up, and it comes back up and picks up where it left off and keeps copying. And he's like, there's a lot of plumbing in there, but it all works. So.
Wow, that's impressive for that. That's impressive now.
Yeah.
Well, pretty soon you'll be able to test that in your shop.
Well, the power went out today when I blew the breaker with the PDP, but it didn't come back up automatically.
But are you going to be copying from your PDP-10 to your PDP-11 or something, or?
No, I do hope to get a big tape drive one day, but I don't want to have two in here, so I can't do the copy test.
Yeah, last time we were talking about this channel versus Dave's garage and subscribe and like and all that sort of stuff, and the algorithm and people watch until the end. So we got a few sort of algorithm things here. I'm not sure we have the answers, but we'll ask the questions and maybe it'll prompt us to do something. So Dave, N8PU, how does YouTube handle if someone fast forwards, aka skips ahead to the end of the video?
I think you say you have a 10-minute video and you watch the first 5 minutes and you skip to the last 5 minutes, it counts it as 10 minutes watch time. And that's what it cares about. You were engaged with this video for 10 minutes and you saw 1.3 advertisements and you watched one of them. It's probably what it's counting behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I guess the stats that you get at your end aren't necessarily detailed enough to
not individual views. I'll see it in aggregate, curves.
Yeah, but that makes sense. Grotty Boots, does it help the algorithm that I always slide the scrubber to the end, even if I have to bail early?
Can't hurt, but I don't think it helps. Yeah.
And John Barnett, 2804. Sometimes I just don't have the time for 45-minute video, so I'll watch most of it, then go to that thing that the bill collectors make me go to, then I'll watch the rest later the next day. So in that case, does it show as I watch the entire video, or you got 2 half views?
No, you get a full view out of that. You get a full coverage of the video if you watch it.
Excellent. So, you don't have to watch it all at once, but just watch the whole thing.
Yep.
The Rob 2079 has an idea here. First of all, he says, discovered you through the Lex podcast. He's so glad he did. So now, new project idea, run TinyLLM on top of the PDP-11?
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if there's anything I can do with the 11 except forward requests on, and that's probably about it. But
that'd be the tiniest LLM.
PDP LLM. I should do that. Just have it send a request to the Threadripper and get the answer.
Blech, 4886. Dave, do you remember a moment where you were, he talks about work and being a developer, loves his job, but some days are harder than others, boring daily stand-up meetings. Dave, do you remember a moment where you were bored or not really interested in the work you were doing, and how did you cope? What caused you, if ever, to lose your interest?
The only thing that I would ever lose interest on is something that I didn't care about once it's shipped. So I would have a hard time working on something that I thought was unimportant. And it doesn't have to be a big thing that a billion people are going to use. If I'm working for John Deere and I'm working on the steering for the tractor, that's important. But if I'm doing some feature utility that's off in a control panel app that nobody's ever going to see, that's boring and sad for me. So I want to be in the main path doing what people are doing and helping them do it better. That's kind of what gets my juices flowing, I guess.
So in your 10 years at Microsoft,
I never. There was a time there was a Project Neptune or something, or some weird new. We're going to change the world UI, and I was kind of cynical about it. And I didn't think it was going to happen, and it didn't happen. And during those months, I think, did I take a sabbatical about that time? I don't know, but I wasn't very stoked about it. But that I'm not shitting on Neptune because parts of it did ship and turn into useful things, but the whole vision was kind of whack.
Okay.
As a change the world vision.
But that's the only time Microsoft ever did anything like that. So they got it out.
It
of
was
their
their one
system,
swing. Yep, one swing at the fences.
And here we have a question from nobody, because the question is, if I put a question mark but ask you not to read my name, would you read my name? And I responded in the comments, nope, that's fine. So you don't have to.
Nope.
Skirt 21. This is a brilliant video, at least from what I can understand. But damn, are you reading it? Or are you really thinking this quick? My brain is not fast enough to determine if I know what you're talking about before you switch topics.
I've written it in advance, so it's all contemporaneous in my head. But sometimes I throw in extra stuff or I go off script. But usually I'm sticking fairly close to what I've written in advance. So I probably type better than I think live.
Yeah, and on this Q&A stuff that we do here on Shop Talk on the Dave's Attic channel, you don't get the question. I mean, you sort of look at a couple of them ahead of time maybe, but you're not writing down your answers. This stuff's, I just throw them at you and you just spit out the response. So there you go. It's all live.
I remember reading about Churchill and that he would spend 1 hour for every minute of time that he would spend speaking in the House of Commons, be 1 hour of prep. And I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of work. I don't do anything like that. But it is a lot of prep, but it's not like that.
Well, no, you do like that, just the inverse.
Oh, 1 hour. It takes me 1 minute to plan. I just type it into ChatGPT and hope for the best.
No, for this episode, you spend a minute, you flip through the questions, and then we hit record and we start going.
Yeah. I just scan for interesting questions to use in the title.
Yeah. J-Man642. At 39 minutes and 33 seconds, is Dave counting his garage size to the cadence of the Sesame Street Pinball song?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, definitely not. M. Scott Howell, who does your post work, i.e. the graphic elements on the left-hand screen, etc.?
Oh, that's going to be Glenn for these episodes.
Yeah, I do the editing, but the little animation piece is part of a package, I think, that you acquired.
Which animation are we thinking of?
It's the one where I put in their name and the question, it comes in, and yeah.
Yeah, that's a FCP toolkit, I think, for Final Cut Pro. But.
Yeah, and at the strong behest of Nerd, who we haven't heard from, because we finally have timestamps, too. So
timestamps everywhere.
There you go. S. John Tremblay. Were you guys doing a bit, or did you really not know that Toronto was YYZ? I hope it was a bit.
No, I don't know what Canadian airports map to what one-letter combination. They're all YY something, right? So there's...
Yeah. I've been to Toronto once.
Yeah, I would expect YYT. What the hell? Was there a bigger city? Did Toronto not swing T? They couldn't get... they had to go Z, because what? Trois Rivers was already using the T.
I know the sort of 3 or 4 airports I fly out of every now and then when I fly, and that's about it. The other ones, I mean, I knew it was a Canadian one. It was somewhere, whatever, back east, which I don't care about anything. East of Saskatchewan is the rest of Canada. So
yeah, I know all the West. I know YVR, I know YYC and YQR, but after that, it's all kind of hazy.
I think where it started was, and I'm going to say you threw me off, but I was not on to start with when you said YVR is Toronto. And I was like, well, no, I mean, that's Vancouver because I live here. So I know that. And after that, it's like I was gone and I didn't know a damn airport from another one because I was like, what? YVR? Isn't that? No. So I started questioning myself right away. Lone Wolves says, so the Rush song YYZ is a reference to a damn airport? Thanks for ruining my childhood.
You really hear the sequel, Uber.
And I think Lone Wolf, YYZ is the airport code, but I think that song from Rush is probably more a reference to the city of Toronto rather than specifically the airport, but I don't know. I'm not a Rush. We'll ask your brother. He'll know.
He's the world's biggest Rush fan. So.
And then my favorite one along that line is Shifoso. Are you two not Canadian and Rush fans? YYC is Toronto. Which I got a
It
kick out of.
wouldn't be
'Cause-
YYZ. Why do you keep saying YYZ? What's going on here?
Well, no, he said YYC, which
Oh,
is actually
YYC.
Calgary. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, thank you for the correction, Shuffle. So, but the Rush song is YYZ, which is the code for Toronto. YYC, which I'm hoping is just a typo on your part, is the airport code for Calgary, which is
Yes.
not Toronto. But anyway, we'll let that slide because we're Canadian and we're pretty good natured. But we like to have fun with stuff. ZZCO or ZZCO or ZZCO. Does this mean Rob Short finally sits down for a chat with Dave?
Yes, but not on camera.
That's right.
I asked. They were like, he and Lou were like, no.
Yeah. Someone else asked about the Lou and said, is that the other guy? So it was Lou, because I said Leo, but it's Lou. What's his name?
Perizzoli.
Perizzoli, yeah. The other guy, another guy from Deck, yeah. Zonid3 said, where can I get one of those shirts? And do they come in hoodie form?
Which shirt?
That was the shirt you were wearing when you did your Windows Sucks.
Was it the anti-GUI dev? Which shirt was it?
I think that was the one you said was sort of wrapped up.
Wrinkly?
Wasn't quite in a ball, but
Well, it
Dave
was
had
stuffed in a ball in a box, and I dug it out, and I'm like, whoa, I'm going to wear this. But yeah, it took me about 20 minutes to iron the thing out, most of it. And it was only a little wrinkly when I was done. So yeah,
Those are no
that's a
longer
collector
available,
item. No.
Yeah, and yours is not for sale. I think you talk to your kids after you die.
Yeah, I'm going to be buried in that way.
Oh,
In my car.
well, that's one of many shirts. You'll be layered in shirts, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All your favorite shirts. Paul Rear, did you guys watch the new Tron? If so, how long did you last before you walked out?
I've only ever seen the original Tron, like the 1980 Tron, whatever that was. I've not seen any sequels.
Yeah, well, and I don't. Is that one out like last year or 2 years ago or
Who can
a few
keep
months
track?
ago? I don't know. Haven't seen it. Probably won't. Might watch it on Netflix if it comes up. But
Yeah, if
You
I'm
won't,
sitting
but I
around
might.
on a rainy Sunday afternoon and there's nothing going on and my ankle's broken and it comes on TBS, I'll probably watch till the first commercial. How's that? But I'm not promising anymore. Does that still exist? Turner Broadcasting?
oh man,
Do you ever get
they
that where you're
butchered-
like just watching a movie on a Sunday and then it comes on TBS and it's like, oh, I'm going to finish watching, Cool Hand Luke, but then there's 40 minutes of ads every 10 minutes. So it's
and
brutal.
they censor and cut stuff out and
Yeah.
Blazing Saddles on TBS. There's a good watch. I mean,
good
that's
20
15 minutes of solid
Yeah.
viewing.
Nothing left.
Huxley Shaggy Dog. He made a comment here. I'm not sure. Maybe you'll get the references. Wait, which is the boring sports car? So you must have.
It seems like Top Gear and Doug DeMuro and those guys. It's kind of a cliche. The greatest car comes out and they're all like poo-pooing it because it's
Okay.
it's not everything that they would hope to have been. So the technology connections reference to his dishwasher pods was overt.
Oh, right.
The world's worst sports car. I was thinking of Top Gear, Doug DeMuro, those guys.
Okay. Yeah.
Throttle House, those kinds of shows.
So the quirks and what does Doug talk about? The quirks and features.
Quirks and features, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's that guy on CBC. He's been doing it for a long time. Quirks and Quarks. Bob McDonald, the science show. That's pretty interesting. He's been doing it for a while. I think. Eddie Geertz. Love these talks, but it seems like you are 24/7 actively doing stuff with your computers and cars. But is there any room for chilling under a simple, relaxing beer, wine, or whatever? Going into low power mode? And what are you doing in that case? What music do you like? Now you're combining the beer thing with the sort of work and hobby thing. So I don't know if that counts, but
Yeah, I drink a beer or two beer during this show, so that's why I get more entertaining as it goes on. It makes me less autistic.
so what are you doing to chill or just relax or low power mode? And what are you doing when you're not doing all this stuff that people keep seeing on the YouTubes?
Well, Friday night is date night. Take the wife out, go to the casino for dinner, that kind of thing. And most other nights, I just kind of dink around in here till 8 and then go watch some TV till 10, and that's pretty much my night. So, yeah, I don't have a lot of downtime. I enjoy what I'm doing, and I do it from like 8 to 8 pretty much every day, or 9 to 8, I guess.
And that's the part that is actually nice about it, is that it's a daily routine that's comfortable, day in, day out.
Now, if you're working on
board.
Tempest for 3 weeks straight and you're not making any progress, or you're stuck up against a SCSI controller that won't boot in your PDP and you can't figure it out, it can get stressful and annoying to get stuck on stuff. But otherwise, it's pretty rewarding.
Stranger Sound says, "Why are Canadians the funniest people on the planet?" He's talking
like
about our
living
looks,
up in
right?
Boston, I think. No, it's like we're funny because it's cold and there's nothing to do but bust each other's balls all winter. Standing on the bus stop, smoking cigarettes and insulting the other guy's manhood. That's basically a Saskatchewan winter, and I think that's like Boston. So, never been to Boston, but I assume.
I think that's where a lot of your Maritimers would have a pretty solid sense of humor as well, and they've had some good comedy troops come out of there because winter is cold and long.
Yeah, they fish for 6 months and then they go on unemployment for 6 months and there's nothing to do.
And I tell you, when you're locked in a house with a few other people and there's nothing to do and nowhere to go outside, if you don't have a good sense of humor, the population shrinks. You just start
murdering each other.
People. Yeah. It's terrible. You gotta have a sense of humor. Maybe being the cousin of the big giant behemoth, the U.S. next door, helps us maintain a sense of humor too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Daniel Tosh has a great bit on stand-up, and I'm not going to try and ruin it for him, but he talks about how tough Canada is, and he's like, yeah, it's easy to be tough when your big buddy's next door to you, standing right behind you. Yeah, send your peacekeepers out.
Anonymous, the doll, you're talking about the ending, the tribute we do to, or you do, to the Friendly Giant. He says, that dollhouse furniture is just too cringy to watch at the very end. That's why I bail early.
Hey, my grandmother and my grandfather made that furniture with their bare hands, bending soup cans with pliers. Yeah. And now it's immortalized in millions of views. What have you done today?
Yeah. And we Canadians are funny people, but even we have our limits.
Yes.
So don't disrespect the Friendly Giant. You sit there and you watch it and you enjoy it. Yeah.
Write an essay on how great it was.
I'm sorry if that sounded mean. It wasn't intended to be that way.
We're not a warlike people, but you know.
We have our limits. That's all I got for questions this episode, Dave. So,
all right. Well, before we jump out of here, I'll remind you to please subscribe to the channel because we're trying to build a subscriber base on Dave's Attic here and get some people to subscribe. So please consider doing that. Then in the meantime and in between time, we'll see you next week. I imagine it will be next Friday in Shop Talk. See you later. This little chair will be waiting for one of you, and a rocking chair for another who likes to rock, and a big armchair for two to curl up in. All next time on Dave's Garage.
Scott Howell, how does your post work? Sorry.
Very well, thank you.
Next question. A little personal, but
yeah.
M. Scott Howell, who does your post work, i.e. the graphic elements on the left-hand screen, etc.?